And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily, our nightly edition here from the winter meetings. A lot of activity over the last 24 hours. We'll dig into quite a bit of it. We already got the news late last night. Juan Soto to the New York Mets, 15 years, $765 million so far. That is the biggest news by a mile at the winter meetings. However, there have been a few deals that have come across the wire, and we're going to see some more activity over the next 24 to 48 hours. So make sure you guys tune in here to the upside, hit that like and subscribe, and let's dig into the latest from Major League Baseball's winter meetings. We'll start with the biggest news item everybody's been talking around the winter meetings besides Juan Soto, and that's the Houston Astros. GM Dana Brown basically dropped a little bit of nuggets of information that they're actually taking calls on just about everybody. If you remember, the Houston Astros are notorious for trying to get low-cost contracts on their roster. For instance, they don't really like going past 5 years. That's an organizational mandate from owner Jim Crane. You saw Jose Altuve just agree to a 5-year extension. They still have a couple of free agents that are going to hit next year. Framber Valdez, Kyle Tucker, most notably, Alex Bregman this year, that are all expected to get significant dollars on the open market, and it would be highly unlikely that given the current state of things for the Houston Astros and their current mindset with how they want to go after free agents and retain their own guys, it's highly unlikely that they'll be able to retain all of them, let alone even one of them, based off of the Juan Soto market, based on all the other free agent contracts that we've seen come down the pike. So Framber Valdez probably would symbolize the most gettable for the Houston Astros to be able to retain. Maybe they can convince Jim Crane to go to 6 years for Valdez, but 5 years at a similar value to what Snell got, maybe even a little bit more, might be what Valdez commands on the open market. The bigger number is going to be Kyle Tucker. His number easily going to top $300 million next year. I would believe that there's an argument to be made that now with the numbers being thrown around, that he could top 400. Now, I think that's very unlikely, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. We went over the last 24 hours who would be the next guy to get a $500 million contract. I still don't think anybody's on the horizon that could get that type of money. We're talking about Juan Soto, who hit free agency at 26. Kyle Tucker is going to be hitting it around 29 years old. That's 3 more years of his prime taken away. And so he's still going to do very well in free agency. But say you do 10 years, $30 million. I think that's a little below market value, but that already gets you to 300. But with the way the market is shaping up, next year you're going to possibly have Bo Bichette on the market as well. There are going to be some key guys that you could go after. Bregman, of course, this offseason. Soto has already been signed. It's legitimately possible that we could see a $400 million contract for Kyle Tucker. Why is that important? Well, he's still under contract for the Houston Astros. Now, maybe they just want to stick to this group together and just, push things across the finish line and try to win one more. But we saw how last year went. Their rotation started to look a little bit thin towards the end of the season. The bullpen had an up and down year. They tried to invest in it by bringing in Josh Hader, and all it did was upset the apple cart. They're looking to trade Ryan Presley in an effort to try to free up some money for them to try to go after Christian Walker. Some people will have you believe that it's trying to free up money to retain Alex Bregman. That's not happening. Alex Bregman's not in their budget right now. I don't see any pathway for them to be able to retain Alex Bregman. No matter what their GM would like to tell you, it's still the GM or it's still the owner's money for him to decide whether or not he's going to go to 7 or 8 years. I think Bregman's very likely to get to that 8-year mark at the way the market is shaping up right now. That puts him over $240 million if I'm guessing where his market's going to go. You look at the Willy Adames contract, that was seen as the backup option for Bregman on the open market for the Astros. That might have been more palatable to them even at a 7-year number. But when you're talking over $200 million, I think that prices the Astros out of it. Sorry, Astros fans, I just don't see a way that you're able to retain Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, and Framber Valdez. It would be great if they could do it. I just don't see a pathway to getting the job done. So that's item number 1. We'll dig into more of that conversation in just a moment. Want to say hello to all of you who are joining us once again. JG, Coral, Mark, appreciate you joining us once again. We'll start at the top with our comments. It'd be good for the Astros side to trade Framber and Tucker. They know they can't sign both back, get back value for them. I would agree there. I think Tucker would be the more likely candidate to go, but that would also command the biggest return in a trade. Framber Valdez, 1 year left on the deal. I think he's probably going to be the guy that they try to hold on to and try to get an extension done. One other bit of news on or one more thing to consider with the when it comes to the Houston Astros, they could be using this conversation to kind of drive home the need for them to sign contract extensions. Hey, you don't want me to trade you? You don't want to enter free agency next year and see what you're worth on the open market? You don't want the risk? Go ahead and sign the extension. I'm sure the Astros have multiple contract offers out to these guys, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy for on the Astros side for them to agree to those terms at 5 years, whatever the number is. But Kyle Tucker, I think his number is going to be so high that even if he got hurt this year and missed half the seasons, I think he would still command a contract over $200 million, no matter what injury he could possibly have. Now, if it's a career-ending injury, obviously that's a different thing. We never want to hope for that for a player. But really like the bat-to-ball skills of a Kyle Tucker. He's going to do very well in free agency. If they were going to try to recoup value, I think they would try to recoup value on him. I think they tried to do the one last hurrah thing with Alex Bregman. Didn't work. I think he's going to leave in free agency. I wouldn't say it's a complete 100% chance, but I'd say it's about as close to one as you could get for a Houston Astros free agent. Tucker's value, surefire over 200, absolutely. Framber, I think, is right around that number, maybe a little bit below. Coral, welcome in. Hello, Upside. Good to see you again. Talk to me. What is all this Astros fire sale talk? Is it real? Can Tucker and Framber be moved at the meetings? At the meetings, I would say no for Framber. I don't think the market's nearly developed for that. We're still looking at Crochet being the top arm that's available via trade. There's still a couple more arms that could be moved, and then there's several starters that are still on the free agent market. Now, say you miss on Burns and Fried, you miss out on Crochet or don't like the asking price, maybe you turn to Framber Valdez. But, I think it's too early in the process to say Valdez could be moved. Tucker, I think if a team just says, hey, we want to jump on this situation before Houston rethinks their position, maybe if a team comes in with an overwhelming offer by the end of the meetings, we could see something. But I think that's still, in the less than 1% category. I still think they're going to try to do the one last hurrah thing. Remember, he came over, the GM from the Houston Astros came over from the Atlanta Braves. What did the Atlanta Braves do very well? They re-sign their own free agents. They get them at cost-effective deals. That's part of the reason why Jim Crane hired him to be the GM there. He also wanted him to be a yes man. We saw how that worked out with the previous GM there when he didn't necessarily have a yes man there. He wanted to have his imprint on the ownership group, or not on the ownership group, but on the front office and on the field, on the managing staff. He wanted to make sure he had his thumb on the pulse of everything that was happening in the Houston Astros. It's his team, it's his money. He gets to have that right. And Dana Brown is going to be the type of GM coming over from the Brave system that's going to try to retain his own free agents and get them at cost-effective deals. The best contract in Major League Baseball is still the Ronald Acuna contract. You look at all the other deals that the Braves have been able to sign with Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, brought in Matt Olson. They got so many guys on cost-effective, long-term deals that they are going to be able to compete for years to come just with the roster they already have. Now, of course, they're still going to tinker around the periphery. They're a luxury tax team now. Astros, I don't think they're necessarily in that same class where they've been able to have as much success retaining their own free agents. They've done a good job bringing back Alvarez. They did a good job keeping Altuve around, and looks like he'll retire as a member of the Houston Astros. But the rest of that core is still up in the air. Valdez, Verlander's free agent right now. Tucker's going to be a free agent after the year. And then beyond that, Bregman's a free agent right now. Correa's already been let go of. They let Verlander leave at one point as well. George Springer, the list goes on and on. Garrett Cole. And I'll be curious to see who they decide to keep, how quickly they decide to pivot from this current team to the next Houston Astros team. I think Houston is on the precipice of a major decision as an organization, whether they decide to make one last hurrah at it like the Toronto Blue Jays are trying to do right now, try to salvage that core that's been built there for the last several years, try to make a run in the postseason. Houston has the justifiable reason to do so because they've won championships with it. Toronto, meanwhile, is trying to save their jobs in the front office. Two very different situations. So while I like what the Blue Jays are trying to do, try to stay competitive, I wonder if the long-term future of that organization would be better served by trying to go through a quote-unquote rebuild there in Toronto. Whereas Houston, they've won a couple of titles already. Maybe this team that's been constructed the way it is now would be best to try to make one last hurrah with the pieces they have and just live with the results and realize they're going to have to bottom out like they did in order to get the pieces they had in their farm system to build up to what they are now. So, we'll see which direction the Astros decide to go. JG, yes, they can, Coral. I think they want to move both. Tucker has 1 year left. I don't think they want to necessarily move Valdez. I think they'd have to be bowled over because I think they view him as the one guy they could possibly re-sign. Now, do the numbers get so astronomical like they did with Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander that they can't afford him? Sure, but if a team comes over and bowls them over, I think any player on any team, is available for that right offer. They always say they're listening on everybody. All teams say that all the time. To not do so would be organizational malpractice. So, for instance, think of Shohei Ohtani, greatest player ever in Major League Baseball history, in my opinion. If I'm the Dodgers, I'm not planning on trading Shohei, but if somebody's offering me, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole, and they're offering to eat every bit of their salary, and all I have to do is trade, Shohei Ohtani, and they're going to give me their entire farm system, I would certainly consider it. That would be the type of offer that would bowl me over. Is that a realistic offer? Heck no. But you always have to keep that door open in case something comes through like that. We've seen crazy trades like that before. We haven't really seen it in modern history because more teams are a little bit smarter in the front office. Less deals done at 2, 3 a.m. in the hotel lobby by an owner who's just trying to get a name on his roster for the next season, sell tickets, etc. More teams think quite a bit similarly. They value players very similarly, but they might go about it a little bit differently. For instance, you might believe in platoon advantages, not paying too much, having flexibility, or you might want to have the big name, everyday player in your lineup rather than going platoons. That's where the variance really comes in baseball nowadays. So we'll see which direction the Astros decide to go, whether they're going to keep him or trade him, or just keep it around for one more year, sign him to an extension, whatever the case may be. A lot of question marks today around Houston. Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you for joining us once again. I'd love to see these moves at the meetings. It would be great to see them. I'm not expecting a lot of moves over the next 12 hours or so. I was hoping we'd get some activity, but there's literally not very many rumors out there. We got a few smaller signings, of course, the Confortos, the Trinans. I would expect the next piece to really move could be one of those corner outfield bats. I think the market on the starting pitchers might take another day or so, but that market is moving as well. So maybe I'll be surprised. We'll be posting some videos tomorrow, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Our videos tomorrow will probably be in this form of short videos during the day, and then we'll do a long one like we're going to do tonight as well. Let's see here. Astros, we've done not to trade them. They wouldn't get anything back if they let them walk. I would agree that they're not going to get anything back if they let them walk. They're going to get a little bit of compensation, but it's nothing compared to what they're worth. For Tucker, though, they'd have to be bowled over. But I think he'd be the more gettable of the two because he's going to have so much value on the open market next year that I don't think they're going to have any chance to be able to retain him. Valdez, like I said, I think there's a greater chance they're able to keep him. That's why they should have traded Bregman, absolutely. Let's see here. I agree, learn from the Angels and Ohtani. That was kind of a case study for the entire sport. We told you guys at the time, 2 years beforehand, that it was organizational malpractice for them not to look into trading him at that point, and they held on to him. They held on to him for a couple of different trade deadlines and a couple of different winter meetings before they finally lost him for nothing in free agency. Compensation pick, but come on, man. We're talking about the greatest player to ever play the game, and you didn't decide to cash him in. Even with half a season left, you probably could have gotten 3, 4, 5 impact prospects on your team, and the Angels would be a much better place right now organizationally. Instead, they're going to have to bottom out, and that's what they're doing right now. How much do you think Vlad will get in free agency? Great question. We mentioned this earlier today. I know a lot of you guys were working during the winter meetings lives that we had today, but we were discussing today, who's the next guy to get that $500 million contract. And everybody kept saying in the chat it's going to be Vlad Guerrero Jr. Let's slow down on that conversation. Look at what Vlad Guerrero Jr. is. For instance, we'll start with the test case of the best free agent first baseman by dollar value, what we're expected to go this offseason. And that would be Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is probably going to get 5 for $125, maybe a little bit more if he decides to go back to the Mets. Maybe the Cohen decides, hey, I'll give you an extra $10 million if you come back here, rather than going and meeting with the Blue Jays or whoever the case may be. But either way, he's not topping $200 million. Now you look at Vlad Guerrero Jr. Has the little bit better defense at first, positional flexibility at third. He also hits for power, not quite as much as Alonso, but still hits pretty well for power. But he's a significantly better contact hitter as well, has some decent speed for a first baseman. He's going to get a deal very similar, I believe, to what Freddie Freeman got, plus some. Freddie Freeman, 6 years for $150 million. That's $30 million a year. That's kind of where the baseline starts for Guerrero, I believe, next year. I think he's going to cross easily into the 200, 250 mark as far as total salary. And I think this thing could get over 300. Do I think it gets over 4? No. But I think Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to do very well. If I had to put a number on it right now, I would probably say in the 8-year, 9-year range, around $300 million. Who are the front runners for Tanner Scott? That's pretty much anybody right now. It's so wide open. There hasn't been too much reporting on Tanner Scott. I know pretty much every team in need of bullpen help is in his market right now. There's so many options on the trade market as well that relievers, that might take a little bit of time to sort out where everybody's going to go. But once they start going, they're going to fly off the board, one after another after another. We saw one move today with Jordan Romano going to the Philadelphia Phillies. They're locking up their closer position. He had a bad year last year, so it wouldn't necessarily rule them out of being able to retain Carlos Estevez or Jeff Hoffman in Philadelphia. So, once the market starts moving on pitchers, it's going to start flying. But there isn't necessarily a front runner for Scott. The Mets have supposedly had some interest in there. The Yankees have discussed things with his camp. Blue Jays to a certain extent. The Rangers, the Dodgers have even checked in on Tanner Scott. So there's a big market for Tanner Scott in free agency. Coral, will Roki Sasaki be posted today? With Roki being posted today, do you feel he signs sooner rather than later or vice versa? He's going to sign between January 15 and January 23rd. He's not going to sign before that. He's not going to sign after that. He's got 45 days to agree to a deal. The reason why after January 15th is that's when international bonus pool money resets. And so once that money's reset, the teams will all have their full allotment that they could give to Roki Sasaki, and it's not going to be a huge impact as far as what their deals that they've already agreed with other international free agents they have done this year. So he's going to wait until January 15th. The teams that are expected to be in there, the Dodgers are the heavy favorite. Padres are said to have significant ties to the negotiations for Sasaki. Rangers are right there. Giants, Cubs, Mets, even to a certain extent, have looked into that possibility as well. Yankees, to a much lesser extent, in there as well. Leslie, welcome back. Appreciate you for joining us once again. I see my Braves making a splash. I still take my Braves over the Phillies and the Mets. I mean, you do have your position players locked up. I worry about that rotation, though, depth in that rotation. You know, there was a couple of articles coming out from The Athletic the last couple of days with Atlanta beat reporters basically saying that the front office there is still willing to invest in this team, still willing to spend money, but I wonder how much they really are willing to spend. Even in the same article where they say they're going to go into the luxury tax and be a third-time repeater tax offender anyway. You know, they may add a starting pitcher, but they're going to go cheap in the bullpen, it sounds like. One starter here, lower cost option. For Max Fried looks like he is on the way out. Nathan Eovaldi's kind of their pie-in-the-sky target right now, but even then, Walker Buehler might be the guy they ultimately settle on because it's going to be cheaper for them. I'm not saying that the Braves are going to go cheap. They made money last year. They're doing well financially, but they seem to realize, where things are going for them. They got a couple of pitchers with big question marks in there. Maybe they bring back Charlie Morton's another thing there. But for me, I still believe the Mets, are right there along with the Phillies at the top of the NL. I think the Braves are probably the fourth best team. Probably the Padres would be number 5. And then pick the winner of the NL Central to be number 6. Diamondbacks number 7, so forth and so on. But Giants are starting to make a rise there with the addition of Willie Thomas. If they add Corbin Burns, I would say they're going to be in a dogfight with the Diamondbacks for 3rd in the NL West. But as far as the Phillies, Mets, and Braves, I would probably put the based on what I think they're going to do, I think the Mets are probably going to finish top of the division, at least the way it stands right now. And then the Phillies probably finish 2nd, and then the Braves 3rd. It's going to be very close, though. All 3 teams should make the postseason. But I think the Mets are going to get another big-time splash in addition to Pete Alonso. I think they're going to add another bullpen arm and another impact starting pitcher. So that's kind of why I have them over the Braves. As far as the Phillies, I'm curious to see what shaking up of this roster they're going to do. I believe Alec Boehm is going to be on the way out. I think there is a possibility it's to the Mariners, possibly for a trade of Luis Castillo. That was basically Castillo's been made available by the Mariners in trade talks. Money is the big question mark there. Are they willing to eat some of it to increase his overall value on the market? He's still a very good pitcher. He's worth the contract he's on, but he doesn't have much extra value on top of that because you're paying him basically market value for what he's giving you. So you're not going to get a whole lot back in return. So for instance, if you did a 1-for-1 swap, you'd probably eat $20 million of that deal if you're the Mariners and bring in Alec Boehm, maybe a prospect or 2 on either side just to kind of make things even, however you think the trade may go. But that's one possibility for the Phillies. And then they could turn around and sign Alec Bregman. That'd be an impressive signing for them, a playoff performer, and certainly would get them shaken up as far as hopefully getting over the hump in the postseason. That's the issue for Dombrowski. That's the issue for Harper in that club. They haven't been able to get over the hump in the postseason. I think the year that the Diamondbacks went against the Texas Rangers in the World Series, that was their chance to really get there and win one, and they fumbled it. I mean, the Diamondbacks went out there and took it. Don't get me wrong, but that was the last best chance I think of the current group of Phillies, unless they make some major changes to that roster. Alrighty, let's see. Interesting, it's a good point. Braves being very cost effective. Speaking of Correa, could he be moved, or is Nolan Arenado being moved more likely? I think Arenado being moved is an absolute 100% guarantee. Stone Cold Lead Pipe Lock, or whatever they used to call it on ESPN radio back when I was a kid. But I think that one's a cinch. As far as where, there's, 5 to 10 teams in on Arenado. It all depends on where these other infield, corner, outfield bats go. First base, third baseman, corner outfielders, DH types. Arenado could fit on any one of those rosters in any one of those capacities, depending on how they retool the roster, move people around, all those kinds of things. As far as Correa, the Twins have been up against it financially since they signed Correa. They offloaded a bunch of salary last year. They were not expecting to compete, and they still ended up with a winning record. Correa is a winning baseball player, but there are big-time red flags about his medicals. I saw a couple of interesting tweets out there that how interesting would it be if the team that goes out there and makes the deal for Carlos Correa is the New York Mets, and they get the Twins to eat a few million of it so that they don't have to give up their top prospects, or don't have to take on the full money of the risk of Correa. I still don't think it would cost a huge amount to be able to bring in Correa. He's still a great player, great value, but the contract is definitely the albatross there. And then, of course, the bigger albatross is what injury does he have that sounds like might have been more of a long-term risk rather than a short-term problem. So that risk is still there. So teams that were interested in signing him back then when he hit free agency are still going to have those same questions about his availability going forward. But I would say Arenado's far more likely. Yankees are another team that could be a fit for Correa if the Twins decide to move on. And I think the time has come for the Twins to turn the page on this current iteration of the team. They need to replenish that farm system a little bit. They've got some good starting pitching there, so that starting pitching should be able to carry them to at least stay competitive in that division while they retool this offense. I think the core of Buxton, Correa, and others, it's just time for them to move on and get the next wave of Minnesota Twins players in there. And to offload the salary of Correa would be a nice way for them to start that. And they could, of course, re-enter free agency here and add another piece to solve the problem there at short. But Correa, I think, does have a chance to go here. I wouldn't say at the meetings. I would say sometime probably before February if I had to guess. But he is a good fallback options for teams that missed out on Soto and others. Hold on just a second there. Let me pull up my screen. Something just flashed from Ken Rosenthal. Mets, Yankees among teams vying for White Sox Crochet. This coming from Will Salmon. Another competition between the Mets and Yankees. Wow. I mean, I think these two teams are right now, and I'm not going to say they're going to try to go up against each other for every big-time free agent that the other one is interested in, but I am going to say that it looks that way from the outside looking in. I mean, we just saw headlines a couple of hours ago about Jonathan Loaizinga being interested, or having interest from the Mets. By the way, he was a bullpen arm, long reliever, spot starter at times for the New York Yankees. Mets have interest in bringing him in, and now we get the story here on Garrett Crochet. Red Sox, I still think, are right there for him, though. Brewers have interest. Reds have interest. There's no shortage of teams like the Baltimore Orioles that are looking for a starter. Braves could use a guy like Garrett Crochet. Blue Jays are said to be connected to him as well. White Sox are going to do very well. I think he does get moved here at the meetings. That might be the trade that loosens things up on the starting pitcher trade market and in the relief market as well. He could be the first domino of many that fall possibly tomorrow. But I would expect that one at the very latest by the end of the week with Garrett Crochet. It seems like his market is really moving along. Alrighty, let's see here. More talk on the Astros. Rangers are still hard after Nathan Eovaldi. That's their number one target this offseason. The question is, what number do they go for? The one thing I'm curious about is how quickly do the Rangers act here? Remember when they signed him originally, it was later in free agency after they've already done DeGrom, and they were, everybody kind of thought their rotation was basically set, and then they said, no, we want one more proven quality starter to come in and solve our issues in our rotation, and they brought in Nathan Eovaldi, 2 years, $34 million with an option. Obviously, he just declined that option, becoming a free agent, and they got a World Series out of it. Now, the Rangers would say that's probably one of the best contracts they've signed in franchise history. I would agree with them. It's right up there among the best they've ever done. But I don't think they're going to get him for $34 million again. I think you're probably looking closer to $24, $25 million. The question is 2 or 3 years. I think with Severino and with Kikuchi getting 3 years, I find it very unlikely that another team is not going to offer Eovaldi 3 years. I think he's going to get the deal that he wants. Jonathan, welcome back. I put my money on the Mets despite having an owner that spends their farm system. It is also better than the Yankees if it comes to a trade. Yankees don't really spend from the top end of their farm system though. They go the quantity route over quality. So I think the Yankees could very well do a very nice package. While the White Sox are looking for position player talent, maybe they go to a team like the Yankees and say we'll take four of your top 15 position player prospects, maybe top 20 position player prospects, and they may rule out like the top four of them and say, all right, we'll take the four that we prefer out of that group. That would be a trade that I think the White Sox would have interest in, or would they rather go for the top heavy prospect package like a Marcelo Mayer from the Boston Red Sox and a couple of smaller level pieces in return as well? For me, I would rather get the blue chip prospect and a couple of young guys, prospect package anyway, from the Boston Red Sox rather than a grab bag full of prospects who may or may not hit. But we saw how that grab bag worked out for the Texas Rangers with Joey Gallo, but I still would rather have the blue chipper in return. This is Unreal coming from the two New York teams. I first saw the report on X. I can't remember who, but it said that the Padres recently denied a Crochet trade proposal that included Salas and DeVries. The Padres are interested in Crochet. That is not inaccurate, but I wouldn't say that they've gotten to the point of exchanging names at that level. What I mean by that is I think that the Padres are still registering their interest. They have some good options in that rotation already. I think they view Crochet as kind of a luxury item for them, but we've seen that front office group there, do strange things before. So Crochet isn't out of the realm of possibility, but I think there are other teams that are going to pay a lot higher price for a Garrett Crochet. For instance, the Baltimore Orioles, if they lose Burns, lose Eovaldi, lose Fried, they really need a top-line starter in there. Crochet looked like one last year. Question marks about the long-term ability of him, if he's able to repeat that performance, and those kinds of things, but we shall see. Sub-Zero, welcome back. Yankees, all I want for Christmas is Nolan Arenado and Max Fried. Arenado would be a great get for you, solve your issues at third base. I think you still need a first baseman there as well, but it'd be a cheaper option with Nolan Arenado coming in. I think the Cardinals would probably be willing to eat some money on that Arenado deal, and by doing so, it might allow you to bring in Christian Walker, possibly a corner outfield bat as well, and then still go after a starting pitcher. But I think Fried is probably a little bit rich for the blood of the Yankees right now. I think they're looking more at position player talent. I think they're looking to add 2 impact bats to that lineup in addition to some rotation depth and, of course, some bullpen help. Sarah, welcome back. Yankees and Cardinals fans, I'm sad about Arenado, but it is what it is. Well, I mean, it's just time to turn the page. They need to go a little bit younger, give regular at-bats to Gorman, Walker, among others. And moving on from a guy like Nolan Arenado, who's made it clear that he wants to be in a competitive environment this season, it's just time for them to move on from him. He's a great professional player. Never really can say a bad thing about him. He's not exactly a bad guy, but it's just time for them to move on. Get some regular at-bats for younger guys in that lineup, and by moving Arenado, you guarantee more at-bats being available every day. If you have Arenado there, he's probably going to play 154 games. That's a lot of at-bats that could be taken up by younger players, and they've already set the organizational mandate. We are going young this season. We're going to live with the lumps. We're going to let Jordan Walker take the pressure off and realize he's going to be in the lineup whether he struggles or whether he succeeds. So that's what they need to do this season, is focus on that development. They're really going to focus on their center fielder's development as well. I want to say his name is Scott, if I remember correctly. Scott the third, anyway. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I think I'm right. But they have some really good young pieces that just need consistent at-bats and playing time. They'll see who works out and who doesn't, and then they'll be able to spend in free agency next year at the holes that they're able to discover. Are those prospects the real thing, or are they fugazi? Are they not exactly great, and so they have to go out there and fill a hole in free agency because that prospect didn't work out? JG, what's Tucker's trade value? Bellinger, PCA, who else? Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up our trade value chart. We're going to go ahead and refresh our page here. With all the Astros trade talk, let's dig in on the Astros themselves. All right, let's look at the majors roster here. All right, Alvarez, of course, has the most significant value. Look, even at his salary, he still has over 100 value. Just incredible contract. The Astros were able to get that one done for. Brown is going to have a lot of value going forward. He's going to be a linchpin in their organization. They got Diaz for another 5 years, Pena. So you can see they've still got a good basis here. But look at these two players. Tucker, 1 year left, 31 value. Valdez is going to be a free agent at 32 years old. He has 1 year left at 25-ish value. Luis Garcia is 2 years away from free agency. Abreu in the bullpen, 2 years away. McCormick, 2 years away. Caratini, 1 year. Not a huge core piece, but a nice piece for them. Dubon, 2 years away. So that's kind of their team right now. They got a good couple of good young cornerstones there in their rotation. A couple of cornerstones there, middle infield with Pena, and then behind the plate with Diaz. The rare hitting catcher in today's game is so valuable. But look at the rest of that roster. They don't have a first baseman. They really don't have any outfielders to speak of aside from Tucker. Bregman's going to be leaving here in free agency, if I would expect. Verlander will look like a shell of himself even if you do bring him back, and you look a little bit thin there as well in the starting pitcher side of things. But look at the value here. You could still get something pretty nice for 31 here from Tucker, 24 here from Valdez. Like I said, I think Tucker has greater value, which he does according to this site. But I think he's also the more likely to be traded because he's going to command so much in free agency that they're going to try to recoup some value. So what could a trade look like? Say we're going to do just a Kyle Tucker trade. There's several teams that are looking for some corner outfield bats, but let's say a team like the Mets could be looking at him to replace Starling Marte, or the Yankees are looking at him. That could be an interesting one. Red Sox would be another interesting team. I think that might be the most interesting fit. Let's go ahead and pull up the Red Sox. I think he would work wonders in Boston. But let's say you move Tucker here to the Red Sox. What would you want in return? Well, you're going to want somebody long-term back. And for me, this is a ready-made trade. Just like the Garrett Crochet deal, they'd be willing to give up Marcelo Mayer in order to bring in Garrett Crochet for their rotation. I think if they were able to bring in Tucker, they're going to need somebody to replace Yoshida because they don't necessarily want him in that lineup. But look at Wilyer Abreu. Great year as a rookie, 28 value. I think even as a one-for-one deal, this is pretty close. I think you'd still have to add another couple of pieces if you're the Red Sox. So let's say you throw in a 19-year-old shortstop, make it interesting. You throw in a 17-year-old outfielder, make it interesting. Young guys again. But you give somebody to immediately plug into the Astros lineup in Abreu. He plays in left field. He would switch over to left field, I believe. I don't know. I kind of like that deal. Let's go ahead and try the trade. It's a fair trade. So Tucker to the Red Sox for Abreu and a couple of young prospects. I would do that trade if I'm Houston, and I would do that trade if I'm Boston. The reason I do it if I'm Houston, I'm getting something long-term value that's already proven to be successful at the major league level in Abreu. I don't lose too much on-field value, and I get a couple of lottery tickets left. And oh, by the way, Abreu is going to be cheap for them to where they can go out and then sign Christian Walker with the money they would save on Tucker this year. Good move. I like it. Why would I do it if I'm Boston? Well, I'm already trying to make room on my roster anyway for, I'm trying to remember the name of the prospect here. Give me a second. Roman Anthony. There we go. Had to pull it up. Roman Anthony, he's probably going to break into the major leagues at some point next year. He's going to be their everyday right fielder. I think they would try to offload Yoshida in another deal, save money, etc. But I really like this deal for Boston because they get Tucker in there and they'd have negotiating rights with him all year long to be able to negotiate a long-term deal. Do I think he'd sign it? No. But I think it would be behoove of them to try to get him in there and proof of concept, if you will, to him. Show them, hey, you and Rafi Devers at the top of our lineup. And then, of course, with our investment in our rotation, whatever they decide to do on the rotation side, whether it be Crochet or Freed or whoever they decide to bring in, show proof of concept that they can still compete in a very difficult American League East. And then Tucker could sign there or showcase himself to the AL East teams that are all looking for corner outfielders right now. And Tucker could do what Juan Soto did this year and really drive up his value. Now remember, he's going to be hitting free agency at 29. He's not going to hit $765 million. but he could very easily hit 300, maybe touch on 400, but he's going to do very well in free agency. He's not going to get 15 years, but he might get 10, maybe 11 in free agency, but Tucker's going to do very, very well. But I like this trade for both teams. Red Sox seem like a good fit there. He could even play left field for them, Duran and center, Anthony and right. And then you've got your outfield locked up for the next several years if you can get a long-term deal done with Kyle Tucker. I kind of like that deal. You guys tell me, what do you guys think? What do you give this trade if you're an Astros fan? I know we got a few of those guys in our chat. JG, among others. What do you guys think of this trade here? You feel the Mets overpaid? Well, that's the price of poker when you get to 26 years old and you have 5 major markets interested in you, and you have the postseason run that Juan Soto did, the numbers that he produces. I don't necessarily think it's an overpay, quote unquote, but I do think it's a heck of a lot of money. It's a funny thing. We get back Willier after trading him for Christian Vasquez. Exactly. So they know the player already. Do you feel the Rangers have the #1 staff in the AL if they can get and stay healthy? Great question. I don't think they have the #1 rotation, mainly because, you can't assume health with this rotation, and you've got so many question marks in there. John Gray is no longer a solidifying force in that rotation. Injuries, maybe even moving him to the closer role next year. We're not certain he's going to be there. You've got some good young options there, sure, with Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, but those guys have, a few starts between them? You can't really count on them to be a sub-3 ERA, but I do like the direction of this rotation as long as they're able to stay healthy. Malley only pitched 3 games this past year. Looks like the Rangers kind of took their foot off the gas with him at the very end just to make sure he was going to be healthy going into the offseason. DeGrom looks good. I think he's going to come out of the gate firing. But remember, it's another Tommy John injury. It's going to take some time for him to get back, and how many innings are you really willing to give him? They could go to a 6-man rotation for those young guys and for those health reasons. Now, if they bring back Eovaldi, I think that rotation is right up there among probably the top 5 or 6. But I still think Seattle's got to be in that conversation as one of the best in the American League. Astros have fallen back a little bit for me as far as top rotations. A team like on the National League side, that's where the best rotation is for me in the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have 4 aces on their staff and could make it 5. If the Rangers add Eovaldi and Sasaki, I might change my tune a little bit. For right now, though, I think the Mariners are probably the class in the American League as far as a rotation. I'm sure I'm leaving out 1 or 2, but I really like the state of that Seattle Mariners rotation. Any news on Teoscar Hernandez? Welcome in, Jason. Appreciate you for joining us. It sounds like the not the Diamondbacks, but the Dodgers still like Teoscar Hernandez, but they might be realizing they're going to be priced out of his market. It sounds like he could be bound for one of those American League East teams, whether it be the Yankees, Red Sox, or Blue Jays. Could be any one of those. He looks really good in any one of those uniforms. I think he's going to do probably 3 at probably like $28 million per season, maybe more. That just seems to be where the market is going for Teoscar, and I think that's away from where the Dodgers' price is for Teoscar after they brought in Michael Conforto. If they hadn't done Conforto, I think Teoscar would be more of a priority, but they got Conforto done. Now they can go a little cheaper with a right-handed hitting corner outfielder. Jason, I can't understand the Dodgers are waiting by not signing him already. Can you give me any useful insight? I think it's strictly because they've already went out and added a corner outfield bat in Michael Conforto. They already realized they have a great roster. Why do they need to spend excess money when they already have a good team? Maybe they can do not necessarily a cheap way of doing things, but still round out a very good team without necessarily paying the retail price tag of a Teoscar Hernandez. Now, for me, if I'm the Dodgers, he would have been a priority for me this offseason. Even if I had brought in Juan Soto, say the Dodgers somehow won the bidding for Juan Soto, I still would have been looking at bringing in Teoscar. The reason being is that Teoscar is good friends with Shohei Ohtani. He was one of the few Dodgers outside of Yamamoto and could be Sasaki this year that have connected to him and kind of made Ohtani feel comfortable. And Ohtani is where it begins and ends for the Dodgers. He is the best player in the game. And they should do what's best for him. Now, if Ohtani calls up the front office tomorrow and says, hey, I want Teoscar, I believe they would get him. But if I'm in that front office, I'd be pushing to bring back Teoscar. He looked really good in a Dodgers uniform last year. Thank you for your sharing opinion and also backing up detail. Appreciate it. Absolutely, Bruce, anyway. I try to give you all as much information as I can. Try to follow the game as closely as I can, keep you guys updated. We'll get into some of the deals that were made today here in just a minute and go over a few more trade ideas. And hopefully we'll get another big announcement. Last night we literally logged off, and the second I logged off, count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, Jeff Passan, 15 years, $765 million. Sure, it let me reset my video, change the title and all that kind of thing, great. But come on, 5 seconds after I log off, like the news breaks on Juan Soto. Come on, man. So I'm trying to make it last a little longer just in case something breaks. It is here in Dallas, about an hour and a half away anyway. So, that's, another reason why I'm trying to go a little bit later. Usually you get news from the winter meetings up to about midnight of the day or of that local time zone. So for instance, if it was in California, since I'm in the central time zone, I'd be up till 2 a.m. covering the sport. But here in Texas, midnight is going to be midnight here. So, I'll probably be live for at least another half hour or so, just seeing if anything else breaks. And if anything, does break later after I'm already logged off again, like last night, I'll log right back in and do it all over again. So we'll see what happens. Do you think there's any other option to replace Teo? There's a few right-handed options on the market. Nobody specific, really, but there's, anybody in that $5 to $10 million range, I think would be a good get for them. Somebody with positional versatility. Think of a Jurickson Profar type of player. I think could be a great option for them. I don't necessarily think they're looking for a masher in that position. I think they're looking for more of a contact right-handed hitter type player. Chris Taylor should be that guy on the roster, but he hasn't been able to perform the last couple of years. They're just basically eating bad money at this point now with his contract. So they're looking for an upgrade over Chris Taylor. That's kind of why they brought in Michael Conforto, because that helps them from the left side. Now they bring in somebody from the right side. Whoever that might ultimately be is anybody's guess. Coral, do you think the Dodgers Conforto signing is any indicator that they aren't as confident in re-signing him? I think this is them realizing that the price for Teoscar is going to get a little higher than what they might be comfortable with. Maybe they see something in Conforto. I told you guys last night I did not like the signing. The 1 year I don't have a problem with. Any 1 year signing isn't necessarily bad because it doesn't take up years of your payroll. But $17 million is a big question mark for me. I mean, they tried to justify it on MLB Network saying once he was away from San Francisco, his numbers were around 250. Well, yeah, but it's a whole body of work, both home and road. Just by playing badly at San Francisco doesn't mean he's going to be great with the Dodgers. So maybe the Dodgers are seeing something there that we're not, but they'd have to be in order to give him $17 million. But I don't think anybody else was going to be at that price point for Conforto. Understandably, prices are higher across the sport for free agents right now, but even still, we're talking about a guy who struggled, injury issues, all those kinds of things are still major question marks around him. 1 year I had no problem with, but the 17, I think you could have got him for half that price. But good on him for agreeing to the deal and kind of forcing the Dodgers' hand to move on from Teoscar because they had already sunk 17 into him. Maybe trading Gavin Lux and Michael Grove. That could be a possibility. One name that's been mentioned quite a few times now with the Dodgers is Devin Williams. He'd be a great closer addition for them. Gavin Lux possibly going back the other direction makes some sense. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily a 100% cinch that could happen. There are so many teams in need of relief pitching. I think Devin Williams could really go to pretty much any of the other teams in Major League Baseball outside of maybe like the Rockies or the Marlins. But any team that's looking to improve is looking for a back-end reliever, closer-type pitcher, could be in the market for Devin Williams or any of these other top-flight relievers. Like Doval has strong interest from the Giants. Then, of course, you get to the free agent market. Kirby Yates, Robertson, Tanner Scott, Estevez, Hoffman. There's a lot of good options as far as relievers as well. But we shall see what happens there. Let's go ahead and wrap up our discussion here on some trade targets. One target, anyway, that I've heard mentioned a few times over the last couple of days is Cody Bellinger. I just wanted to check in on his market. Let me go ahead and clear this trade first. There we go. Let's go ahead and pull up the Cubs first. And just look at what Bellinger is really worth on that Major League roster. Negative 7.7. So like I said, the Cubs are going to have to eat some money. The one team that I think fits better than most now is going to be the New York Yankees and the Seattle Mariners. For me, those are the two favorites. Everybody else is kind of a second or is a third or fourth place team to me in the running here. But I would like to see the Cubs move him to either one of those two spots. I think he'd do well in both of those locations. Let's go ahead and start with the Yankees since they're hurting the most, missing on Juan Soto. What would they have to do to bring him in? Well, say the Cubs eat roughly, I don't know, $15 million. Um, I didn't put him in the trade yet. There we go. Okay. So let's say they eat roughly $15 million. That means he has a value of around 7. So what would the Yankees have to do to get him in there? So round 7, you're probably looking right around this area here. Ben Rice would make some sense there, going back the other direction as kind of the name piece. And then maybe a low level piece going back as well. Say like a 22-year-old catcher. There you go. Let's do Tejada. There you go. Good young player. Yay. Let's go ahead and throw Matic in there as well. Another good young piece, quantity. Okay, so there you go. You take a piece off of your 40-man and Ben Rice. Send a couple of low level prospects in return for Bellinger. Pretty good deal here. Let's go ahead and see if it runs through the system and works. Minor overpay. Yankees, I think, are going to be taken advantage of a little bit because of their desperation to add a bat. So a minor overpay here, with this type of a trade would sound about right for the way the market is going to react to them. Until they add another bat via free agency, I think trades are going to come at a little bit of a premium cost for the Yankees. So they'd be wise to do whatever they're going to do in free agency first before going the trade route. So bringing in a Bregman, bringing in a Walker, a corner outfielder like Santander or Hernandez, I think would be prudent for them to go out there and do first, and then turn to the trade route and say, hey, we're not necessarily desperate to do it. Let's make a real baseball trade and don't try to take advantage of me because you think I'm desperate because I missed out on my guy, Juan Soto. I think that would be a more prudent move for the Yankees to do first. Heard any traction about Devin Williams and Tanner Scott? Traction, no. Interest, absolutely yes in both of them. Tanner Scott, probably the best reliever on the market as far as free agent. Kirby Yates might have something to say about that. Estevez could have something to say about that. Hoffman could have something to say about that. On the trade front, Devin Williams probably has the highest ceiling of all the guys that are available via trade. Helsley is said to have been taken off of the market, but I'll believe it when I see it anyway. But I think the Cardinals will be very willing to trade him if they get the right offer. I think taking him into the season is a big risk. We saw what happened with the Marlins when they thought they'd be able to have a masterful deadline last year because they had all these starting pitchers to trade. None of them were ultimately healthy or having good years, so they didn't get anything really at the deadline for those pieces. And so it was just a lost year all the way around for Miami. Now they're looking at the possibility of trading Jesus Luzardo for essentially a bag of chips this offseason. It's not looking good there in Miami, so we'll see what their next move is. But that kind of speaks to the situation with Helsley for the St. Louis Cardinals. Why take the risk of losing or of not being able to reclaim value out of him? Say poor performance creeps back in, or injury bugs, or whatever the case may be. There are too many variables there for him to be on that roster on opening day. I would move him before then. Given the current state of the market, where do you think Burns and Fried land in your opinion? I still think the Red Sox are the favorite for Fried. I wouldn't rule them out of Crochet even if they got Fried there as well. As for Burns, I think the Giants are a big-time fit there. Buster Posey did really well bringing in Willy Adames. That's the first targeted free agent that they've been able to sign. They were always the leftover team. Hey, we got money. Take our money for a year. We'll help you rebuild your value here. This is the first targeted player that they went out there and got. First win in that organization when it comes to free agency in years. And a good first step here for Buster Posey. That's why I think bringing in a Corbin Burns would be another great step for them. But the Orioles should be the team in there. I don't think they are, though, at the price point of the Mets or the Giants or the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Blue Jays. I think they're just going to be outbid. So if I had to say a front runner right now, if Cohen is willing to go for that money, I think it would be the Mets. If they aren't willing to go for the money, I think the Blue Jays or Giants is probably the most likely for Corbin Burns. What other moves will the Cubs make since they signed Carson Kelly, and will any trades be announced during the meetings? Kelly was the addition that we were going to mention earlier. Cubs did bring in Carson Kelly, one-year deal. Remember, he had a great first half with the Tigers, parlayed that into a trade to the Texas Rangers. Ultimately, it didn't work out, of course, but he took a little bit of a step back offensively. Always known as more of an offense-first catcher. Hopefully, the Cubs can get him back on the right track like he was in the first half of 2024, but a good signing nonetheless. What other moves will they do besides Carson Kelly? I believe they'll add a starting pitcher. Walker Buehler makes a lot of sense for me. I think they'd have good competition anyway between the Dodgers and Braves for his services, but I think he'd be a great fit there in Chicago. Let's see here. Any other trades going to be announced during the winter meetings? I think it's likely we'll get a Garrett Crochet trade to the Cubs. I don't think so, but there's going to be some activity late tonight, early tomorrow. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook Upside Sports Network to stay up to date with all the latest. Have a great night, Giles. Great night, Jason. Appreciate you for joining us in our chat and interacting with us. It's a lot of fun when you guys chat along with us. I can answer your questions and keep you guys updated on what you may have missed while you guys were working. So hopefully y'all have, hopefully we get some more headlines and we have a more interesting evening. Juan Soto certainly spiced things up a little bit over 24 hours from now, or 24 hours ago. One other bit of news, Tigers are one of the teams that's reportedly interested in Goldschmidt. Giants are said to have interest there as well. Yankees are said to be a fallback option for Goldschmidt. Not too many other headlines at the moment, though. What other bullpen arms do the Cubs want? That's a good question. There's a lot of good bullpen arms on the market right now. I've heard of a few of them being connected to them, Tanner Scott being one of them. Devin Williams via trade, the connection there with Counsell and the Brewers. Would they ever trade him in the division? Probably not. Their Ryan Presley trade conversation I think would be a great fit for the Cubs. I have not heard that one on the market. It's just one that I'm thinking of that, the Astros are looking to move on and save some money on Presley. Saves the Astros $14 million that they could turn around and give to Christian Walker in free agency and solve their issue at first base. They already have Hader back there in the bullpen, so reinvesting that money elsewhere is prudent for the Astros to do. They're telling everybody, who will listen that we're still in there for Bregman. I'll believe it when they sign him on the dotted line. But for the Cubs, I think he'd be a great closer for them and solidify the back end of their bullpen. He's a little bit older, 1 year left on his deal, but I think that'd be a great addition to that club. Low cost, high impact signing or high impact trade if they're able to get that type of deal done. He would be a name I would be curious what happens with him. Kenley, good question there. I have no idea, honestly. I'm not sure how much he has left in the tank at this point in his career. I think a team that's looking to take a shot on him as a fallback option for a closer, or a team that's not necessarily competing for a World Series, but a team that's on the up and up, that's trying to improve. Say a team like the Royals, who's trying to push for playoff contention, all those kinds of things, that could use a back-end reliever. Kenley makes some sense there. Or to a team like the Padres, or not the Padres, but the Pirates, who had some up and down performance from Bednar, might be a fallback option if Bednar falters again. He would be the Aroldis Chapman type role for them this next year. That would be another team I could see for him. Teams that need back end help, period, like the Texas Rangers, looking for anybody and everybody who could use Kenley. Jays are now looking for a closer as well. Mark, I know you saw Romano sign with the Phillies, so they're going to have to bring in somebody for a closer, so that'd be another good one there. But I'm not expecting him to go at the top levels of the market. I don't think he's getting anywhere near $16 million a year like he did with the Red Sox a few years back. But we'll see what happens, where he goes. I don't know. But there's so many other relievers in the market right now. I don't think he's the top target of any of these teams. How confident are you that we get a lot of action and into tomorrow? Tonight, I would say we're probably going to get one or two more moves. How big remains to be seen. I think a lot of it's being held up on the trade side now. The Juan Soto logjam has finally started to lift. We're getting some of the traction on some of the other corner outfielders. I think Bregman is the next log to go as far as position players. There's not anybody else at his level on the market on a position player side. On the starting pitcher side, once we start seeing the relief pitchers start to come off the board, they're going to fly off. The first basemen are usually a little bit later in free agency to sign. At least that's been the trend in the last 5-6 years or so. So Alonso might be the rare exception here, to where he might take the deal from the Mets a little bit quicker. Mets like to move quickly in free agency. Maybe the Yankees, jump at the opportunity to sign a Christian Walker if they're able to come to terms with him rather than Bregman. But I do expect to see some activity tonight, and then tomorrow we should see a bunch of activity. We got the draft lottery tomorrow as well. We'll be live tomorrow night around probably 8 o'clock, if I had to guess, is when we'll do our live tomorrow night, and then we'll post a bunch of videos during the day of some of the bigger moves and keep you guys updated that way. But appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Let's update our page one more time. Mark Bowman, this is the Braves beat reporter. Nathan Eovaldi still seems to be an option, but signing Charlie Morton to a one-year deal might make more sense given the pressing need of an outfielder. Braves continue to evaluate ways to remain strong in the division. That once again includes Juan Soto. Not a surprise there. They did say that at the outside of the offseason they were looking for a corner outfielder, that they were looking for a starting pitcher and some relief help. They were going to go a little bit cheaper on bullpen, so they may have to go a little bit cheaper in the rotation to get the corner outfield bat that they're looking for. What is the market for Kike Hernandez? Multi-positional players always have a good market. He should do well in free agency. Probably, I wouldn't say he's going to get $20 million a year or anything like that, but versatile type players like that are going to do well. I would say probably a 1 or 2 year deal. Is Rizzo going to the Pirates? They are looking for offense. They're looking to do it cheaply. Rizzo would be a good veteran leadership type of player for them. Could be a good fit there. I wouldn't put that one out of the realm of possibility. Getting him back into the NL Central, where he was once a member of the Chicago Cubs, but could be a nice fit. See if there's anything else here. Nothing else there. Let's flip over to MLB trade rumors. Orioles looking at Fried, Manaea, and Pivetta. I don't think they're going to retain Santander after they brought in O'Neill. Burns, I think, is a little too high priced for what they're able to do. But look at their rotation options right here. This is a rotation that needs a frontline starting pitcher and a second in that rotation. That rotation is not going to be good. I understand everybody had hopes and dreams on Rodriguez. He hadn't lived up to it quite yet. You're looking at Eflin as your number 2, Kramer as your 3. Yee. They need some pieces in that rotation. Jack Flaherty is still out there. Maybe they look at a reunion there. Eek. Absolutely, Coral. Glad I could help you guys out. But I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it here. Maybe we'll have some, lightning will strike twice. We'll have another crazy deal that happens the second I log off. So think of this as my, willing it to happen, is that we should, hopefully we'll see another trade or a signing 5 seconds after I log off again. But if you guys, want to hit that like and subscribe, it really would help us out. Gain quite a few subscribers today. This is our 3rd live covering the winter meetings today. We'll do one tomorrow in the evening, but we'll do a bunch of shorter videos. Those of you who are working might not be able to join our live, so I wanted to give you guys another opportunity to catch our content by making short videos about the winter meetings. But appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for following along with all of our coverage for the winter meetings and from the hot stove season. Remember, we're going to be live for you guys every night after the winter meetings as well. Every weekday evening around 8:30, 9 o'clock, breaking down all the latest from around Major League Baseball. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Thank you guys for joining us. Y'all have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow night.